Today we're going to show you how to tint a back window from the beginning to the end. You know, with the prep, how to prep it, how to mold it, and then how to install it, finish it all up. This is a 2017 Chevy Cruze, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Make sure that we cover up the interior. So I already took off the headrests inside. On this car you have to actually pull the seats down, pull the headrests out, and then I covered it with some towels. So we got that already set up. We haven't prepped anything on the inside yet. What I like to do first is make sure that the outside of the glass is clean so that I could make sure that everything is clean when I'm getting on the inside. So what I want to do is just get in here. Either you want to scrub it if it's really dirty. This car is it's brand new and it's fairly clean. What we want to do is we want to spray our window down and then just basically wipe it all down. So just I usually use microfiber towels. Just wipe it down nice and dry so that you can actually see if you have any stickers or anything like that that's dirty on the inside. But we want to make sure the outside is clean as well because we need to bounce this. I'll show you what that is in a minute. And I like to do just kind of wipe around the car just to get that dust down. Now, if the car is very, very dirty, usually what I like to do is I usually put down towels here and on top of the roof, keep the dust down unless I have time to rinse it off or anything like that. So now that this is fairly clean, we're going to go on the inside and we're going to take our soap and water solution and we're going to spray it in there and we're going to scrub it down and then we're going to squeegee it down. So what I use is a non-abrasive scrub pad. These are actually, we get them through our tint suppliers. If you don't have access to this, you can actually use one of the blue scrub pads that you use to wash your dishes. That works just as well. Do not use the green one. The green one will damage the defrosters and the antenna that's in the back of these. But that blue one will not, and these ones will not. When I first got started, that's what I used until I got a hold of a tinting supply place, and then now we use these. These are really thin or nice to kind of get anywhere. And then I have a bunch of tools to get in there. If you don't have any of these, well, on a tight type of vehicle, you're going to have a hard time tinting them. I just have different ones. This is called like a side swipe. I don't remember what this one's called, but this one's really nice to get down in there. And then we have one of these, kind of creates pressure, gets in those corners and cracks that are really hard. We have a different type of scrubber to get down in the corners in here, and then we have our bulldozer, which is this real big one down here to kind of push the water out. So, and then you use your typical squeegees and stuff, your turbo squeegee. Two different Blue Maxes. There's one, the small one. This one, it gets a lot of the water out. You can use it mostly on the doors, and I got a bigger one for the back window. So it's just your preference on which one you want to use, but it's the same actual Blue Max on the top. So I'll go ahead and put my tools in there, and basically what I do is I'm just going to go ahead and wet it. I'm going to scrub it in circles all the way, and then squeegee from one side to the other, and then just towel everything off. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is take our solution, and we want to spray the back window. We've already covered up the seats in here, and just like get it nice and sprayed down. Take your scrub pad. And then what I do is I go in circles. Now we do have the antenna connector right here, so just be careful around that. We're going to have to cut around that. Just make sure you're looking at that. But you have a lot of room on the top. Very little room on the sides, maybe less than 1/4 of an inch or so. And then on the bottom you have a little bit of room. The panel's really close up to the glass. In some instances you do have to put the seats down and start dismantling stuff and taking these trays out, especially if they're up too close. This one's okay, it's a newer car. There's not any dog hair or anything here, so we don't have anything to worry about like that. So we'll just basically slide the film in, wet it really good on there and kind of push the water down. so get any dust or any debris before we install it. And then we're going to take our squeegee, and it's your preference if you want to go from left to right or right to left. Just try to get all the residue off of it as best you can. Make sure you use nice clean towels. Try to something that doesn't produce a lot of lint. Some people use paper towels sometimes. We do use paper towels on occasion when we're cleaning the edges, but not so much when we're doing, like, say, something like this. Because then we would be going through a lot of paper towels, which we used to in the past, but now we buy these microfibers and they seem to work. You just rewash them. So, and like I said, see, right here now, I'm going to need different tools because I can't really get down in there because the panel's right there. So this squeegee only gets me so far down. So the next step would be, I like to use the side swipe, see how far down I can get with this. And then if not, then I'll take a real thin microfiber, let's say something like this, and then I'll clean the excess water off. So I'll start from one side. Same thing, kind of work our way down, pushing on the panel. This seemed to clean it pretty good. I don't think I'm going to even need to use this one right now. Might use this later to get the water out when I'm ready to install, and or actually after the install. And then just dry everything. You know, you don't want to leave a lot of water on the customer's car. I mean, most of it will dry out, but you do want to get the majority of it off of there. So this is now prepped. So now we're going to go outside, bounce our window, and then wait a couple of minutes, and then we'll go ahead and cut it out. We'll ask questions about this next step. There's a couple different ways you can heat shrink this back window. The best way to do it is what we call a dry shrink. And what we use is actually use a bounce sheet, you know, the dryer sheets. Is we just take one of these. Okay. We'll go ahead and mist the glass. We'll go ahead and wet our dryer sheet. What I like to do, I like to just rub it together. It's going to create almost kind of like a paste in a sense. See that? And then what we do is we're going to go ahead and just rub it all over the glass. I like to go in little circles after I get the initial part of it on there. Same thing here. Just kind of rub it on and then just go in circles. And just get it all over the glass. Now, if you bring in a car on a hot day and do this, this will dry up fairly fast. In my case, I mean, it's warm outside, but it's nice and cool in here. I got my AC rolling. So this is going to take maybe a minute or two to dry up. And what we want it to dry up, because then what it does is it actually creates almost like a static effect. Okay, so the power of magic, it's dry. Okay, so like I said, you might want to wait about 5 minutes or so for this to dry. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to measure our window. And we want to go outside the black border here, maybe an inch or two, okay? So this would measure, inside the border measures about 38 inches. So if we go an inch on the inside and an inch out, it's about 40, 41 inches. So our customer chose our high performance film made by Max Pro, our 5% live-up. Okay, so we went ahead and we pulled our film. And what we want to do is get our little bounce, wet it, and come across the middle. And just wet the middle. And then what we'll do is we'll lay down our film. I pulled this really long because my measuring tape messed up on me, but it's broken. So it's better to pull it long than short. So next thing we want to do is we want to flatten out the middle and go up on the sides a little bit, like an H pattern. What we want to do is set up a light inside so we can actually see our borders here. I usually use some kind of a bucket or something and then just put my light on top of that so that it flashes down. And then you could just kind of lift the film up and then just, you know, cut it big. Just, you know, as you go along, just kind of trim the excess, but leave it big. You can leave 2 to 3 inches on the sides. It doesn't really matter right now. We're just pre-cutting it out. So once we got that all pre-cut out, next thing we're going to do is we're going to mold the film. We're going to take what we call a hard card. There's a couple different kinds, but just depends on what you like to use. This one's pretty decent. What we want to do is we want to shrink the tops and the bottoms. We don't want to shrink to the sides. That's where we create this H pattern right here, because we don't want to shrink in this. 2 or 3 inches at a time. And some guys will heat it and then use their hand to do that as well. I like to just flatten it out the first time. Seem to have less issues. Now, some windows are going to be a little bit more difficult than others, but this one's not too difficult. It's got a little bit of curve, but not a lot. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest, this is probably like a 2 or a 3. So it's not a very difficult window to shrink. The key here is you don't want to leave your heat gun in one spot for too long. As soon as you see it wrinkling, move it. Move the heat gun. So the bottom's all nice and flat. So again, just shrink, you see it wrinkling, push it out, wrinkling, push it out. Almost wrinkles and flattens the film out for you, which is basically molding the tint. I do have the heat gun about maybe 3 inches, 4 inches away. Sometimes I get it closer. Now the reason we leave it big is just in case we get an area that's very difficult and it actually creases on us. So if it creases, we have that room to cut that off and that not be in our film. So right now, next step, turn the light back on and then trim it all the way around. Now, I am working with a limo tint, so it's a little bit more difficult to see. So if you have a couple bright lights put in the car, that's probably the best thing to do right now. Trick that I learned was if you could shut off the shop lights and have just those lights on, you'd be able to see a little bit better. So now we're able to see this trace of the line a little bit easier for us to cut it out. I used to have one light on over there, but Makes it a lot easier for me to see, so I can trim this out. So now we just want to go maybe 1/16 of an inch over. You know, it really depends on how much room you have inside the vehicle. So when you were prepping it, that's one thing you want to remember, how much room you had in there. If you had a little bit of room, like I mentioned earlier, you want to cut that really close to the edge. The top, we did have quite a bit of room, but I'm not going to cut it too big. And then we did have that sensor somewhere in here. It's right here. What we want to do is in that whole section just cut it real close to the border. Just so when we put the film in there, we're not going to have an issue there. Even with those two big lights, I'm having a hard time seeing the bottom here. I have another little light, see if this helps me out at all. Stay up. Help me a little bit there. Sometimes you got to bend down and look at at different angles to be able to get in there to cut this out. Super important that you always have a very, very sharp blade when you're trimming on the glass. I use the red dot stainless steel OFA blades. Red dot is the actual type of knife that I use. And then I don't know if you were hearing the snaps. I was actually breaking off bits of the blade so that I have a sharp blade every time. Usually every time my blade leaves the glass, I usually snap it to make sure I'm not scratching the windows. Some guys will use one blade on freaking the whole car. That's not good. But I mean, if you don't want to really push a lot of pressure on it, enough just to cut the film. Okay, the next step that I like to do, now this is not necessarily on everybody does this, but what I like to do next, now that it's all molded, sometimes you get what we call these little poppers. You can, right there. You push it away, and then usually, depending on, you know, sometimes it'll pop back up. So what I like to do here, in this case, that one went away. Who knows, in a couple of minutes it'll come back. But what I like to do is I like to pull half the film back, almost like a double shrink, but I only really shrink the bottoms and the tops. So I pull the film back, now I wet it, lay it back down at the top. I'll start from the middle, and then basically I'm basically flattening the film out. What I call a pre-install. This is like kind of imagining like I installed it. Obviously it doesn't go on the outside. So if anything pops up here, I can heat it. Like this little thing popped up right down here, whole bottom, and then it'll heat this whole top once I do the same thing on the other side. Same thing, lift the film halfway up, wet it a little bit. You have to put a lot of water, just enough to just give it a nice mist. So I pull the film, kind of Flatten the film out. Nice, pretty hard strokes. We'll take a paper towel with my hard card, and I'll heat the bottoms. I was telling you, basically push the rest of that water out. It's about 5-6 inches up, down, all the way to the bottom. Do the same thing on top. Now that our pre-install is done, we're ready to install the film. The glass is clean on the inside. Now we just gotta strip it back and then go ahead and install it. I'll go ahead and wet the glass on the inside. Same thing, same way we wet it before. Push that water on the bottom down. Let the sides down. Now we'll go ahead and wet this. So what we want to do here is we want to get one of the corners. Start to peel the liner. See that? I'm going to peel that liner right now. I'm going to wet it. It's nice and wet. Put your water inside. All your tools should already be in the car. So we'll grab the film, get our hand underneath it, put it on our forearm, let it dangle, get the other side dangle, and get underneath it. And then fold it like this. Now we'll take it inside, and then we'll unfold it in there. So I got the film in, I kind of slid it in, and then now we're just going to finish pushing it down until we don't see any more light on the bottom. Push the panel down, make sure we don't have any light gaps. Lay it up there like that. Now we do is wet it. Take our big Blue Max. See in there a little bit. Push down, push up. Be careful on the sensor. So what I can do is push over, up, down. Essentially, you're trying to squeegee the same way you did when you flattened out the film. Now we've got half of that squeegeed. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll go with our side swipe. And finish squeegeeing it out. I don't know if you can see bottom, there's still a bunch of water. So we want to go ahead and take our side swipe, go for one side, swipe it across. Same thing, go back the other way and get as much water as you can out of there. Now, you could go over it one more time with your Blue Max, and then what I'm going to do is get some paper towels, and this is where we use the paper towels. and then go along all the edges and bump our edges. Now, then once you get outside, if you notice there's water, you can use some of the other tools if they're necessary. So let me grab some paper towels and I'll be right back. Right, one more time. Over it again. This time I'm just going to go one direction. 4 or 5 inches at a time. Take our side swipe again. And if you want to go ahead and use your bulldozer, push it down to the side so it doesn't catch the corner. You want to catch the edge and lift it. Now sometimes you have to use this tool. You can run it across the bottom if you like, just to be double sure. And lastly, you want to dry the corners. So take a hard card, paper towel, start from the middle, and then just push your way out, catching all the excess water. On the bottom, you're not going to be able to reach down there. So that's where this tool comes in handy. You wrap it up, you do the same thing, you'll start from one side, work your way across, flip it over, use the dry side, come back the other way. And that's pretty much that. And then you just finish up by just cleaning up the window with your glass cleaner. Hopefully it doesn't have any ammonia in it. And then we'll go from there. Spray it on there. Now this stuff is like 1/4 alcohol, 70%, and the rest is just water. And I use that on here just to get all this soap residue off the tint. Towel over and then just dry the panel. That's it for in here. I'll go outside and clean the outside. The inside's already clean. Now we're going to do the outside. Same thing, our alcohol and water. And if you've tinted the front doors and all that, you might have used some old paper towels. You could use those now. I actually did the back window first for you guys on this, so I'm just going to take some new towels and just wipe off all that bounce. Get my towel over. All that residue off. Comes off fairly easy. And then once we got that stuff wiped off, now I'll take 2 of these microfibers, one of them to clean the rest of it off completely, and then one of them to buff it. You'd be surprised on how clean the glass gets when you do it like this. I always get compliments, customers saying, "Wow, how did you clean that glass? So clean, what do you use?" And then you just wipe the rest of the stuff. So then you basically then I'll just look around the edges and see that you didn't miss a spot. And, you know, sometimes you might miss a little area where you left maybe a little bit too much water, or you just didn't push it out enough, or something popped up. Take your heat gun, heat it, push that out. Usually when you see a spot, you want to heat it for about 10 seconds and then let it set a little bit, maybe 5-10 seconds, except for Mercedes and BMWs, those you gotta let it set up a little bit longer. Most of the other cars you let it sit about that long, get inside, take a paper towel with your hard card, push it out, or a little chisel or whatever you have, and then that will usually take that water or air pocket out of there. So that's pretty much it. This window, you can't turn on this defroster for about a month. And you can't clean the window for the first month as well. with this type of, with these films, most films. It's usually recommended. If you have any questions, hit me up. Thanks for watching.